National Signing Day is coming near a close here on the East Coast at about 9 o'clock Eastern Time. We got the UCLA storyline coming our way from Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football. Please join him and the rest of the staff there if you want to dive deep into recruiting, because they were working throughout this week, but fast and furiously throughout National Signing Day on this day. Tony, how you doing?
We are staying awake still, barely, but much like you, carrying your show throughout the day with all the breaking news. That was us. I mean, I'm blessed to be surrounded by a team of terrific writers and editors. By the time the day is out, we will have put out about 57 articles today, starting at about me being on the West Coast. I took about an hour and a half nap after I got home from North Carolina early this morning. And we were at it as the East Coast schools started reporting, what they had. So, it's funny. I always liken it to me being the guy in the air traffic control tower, right, for the FAA. And I'm sitting there looking at multiple screens, making sure the articles don't crash into each other, much like, the planes don't crash. And then I had Kate, one of our associate editors. She would be the person on the ground with the bright sticks waving the different planes in the different directions. It's kind of like, hey, we got this announcement from Kentucky. Oh, wait, there's one. I'm like, all right, hang on, Kentucky. Go with West Virginia. Oh, there's Ohio State. All right, let's get Ohio State in. Now let's go, as that for a solid, without break, for a solid 5 to 6 hours before it slowed down at all. So it's pretty intense, but it's fun. We enjoy it.
It is. It is a day like none other, and it holds importance like none other as well. Fifth ranked for the Pac-12 is UCLA's class as it stands right now, number 46 in the country, according to 247 Sports. What are the hits and the misses from the last 2 or 3 days?
It's interesting you say as it stands now. It's not, the class is not going to get better. It's done. This class is now what it is. We spoke with Chip Kelly earlier. They signed 11 players. They had 12 commits. There's another 3-star player who's hanging out there who could still sign in the next couple of days. There was no reason given, obviously, why he didn't sign. It's a very middle of the pack class, no pun intended, but it is a lot of to be determined in terms of its value. Like you said, it's fifth overall and 46 nationally. It's okay. Did it fill all of UCLA's needs? No, it did not. Look, I think at this point, and we talked about this with Chip Kelly earlier, you have to be some sort of advanced math major to be able to figure out the scholarship numbers on a year-to-year basis, because with the COVID year and the super senior, schools were allowed to go to 100 scholarship players and 115 total players on the roster. That was only 1 year, though. Now they got to go back to the 85 and 100. But you can still have super seniors, the guys who've already finished their 6th year, which by UCLA, I think that was 6, maybe 7 of them who were already in their 6th year for the 2021 season. Those guys are gone. However, seniors, regular 4th-year seniors, and 5th-year seniors still have the ability to claim that free year of eligibility in 2020 from the NCAA, thus making them classified as super seniors at a time when the schools are supposed to be going backwards on their scholarship numbers. So you can still have your class of 25, right, which is the normal number. And you can have up to 7 more above that to replace the guys who hit the transfer portal or your super seniors left. So you can have a class of 32 while you're supposed to be dropping down to 85 scholarships. We were talking to Chip about it. I said, does this get hard? And he said it's a daily effort to figure out where this is going. Because now what you've got with UCLA is, as you and I talked about so much this year, it was a very veteran team. And they had several super seniors who are now gone, Britton Brown and Quantrez Knight and guys like that, who are now moving on after the bowl game in a couple of weeks. But now you have all these other seniors who can come back for another year if they want to. And Kelly said he is not putting a time deadline on them to do it. The NFL has its, I think it's January 15th, somewhere around there, is the deadline to declare. But Kelly said, we are keeping a scholarship open for every single one of them if they want to come back. Now, he doesn't think they're all going to come back. He thinks some will, some won't. Our insights tell us most won't, but some will. But how do you do that then, right? How do you manage those numbers when you're saying we signed 11, we're not going to get to the 32. We want to leave some open for the transfer portal, but we're waiting to hear from 15 players currently on the roster to know what they're doing. It really is a juggling act. I mean, I can imagine UCLA getting to, somewhere around 17 or 18, maybe 19 players in this class. When you add in, the transfer portal players who don't really count against, they're not in the rankings for this class, but they do count against this class per se in terms of the numbers that you're going. So it's a constant juggling act. UCLA's class specifically for this year, it was okay. They added in a couple of tight ends, very high ranked tight ends, who will, probably be able to play pretty early on. They got Carson Ryan from American Forks, Utah. He was the 11th ranked overall tight end in the country. And then they got Jack Peterson also, who was ranked number 7 in the country. Completely different tight ends, by the way. One is more athletic, almost what we described as a little bit more of a contemporary tight end. That's Ryan, in that he's not the preeminent blocker, but good hands, can go over the middle, good ball catcher. And Peterson is a little bit more of a guy you're going to keep tight to the line, have him block quite a bit, do those kinds of things. With Greg Dulcich probably leaving for the NFL, scouts we've talked to put a high value on him. It leaves 2 tight ends on the roster, neither of whom have a tremendous amount of experience because everything's been going to Dulcich. So these 2, if they are as labeled, will have a chance to compete for spots early on. The real get for UCLA was in the last 24 hours when they flipped Kamari Ramsey, defensive back. He's a 4-star out of Sierra Canyon in Chatsworth here locally. He had been committed to Stanford since August. He went ahead and continued to take trips. He took a trip to UCLA for the UCLA Oregon game, which even though UCLA lost, there of course was all the hoopla with ESPN College Game Day being on campus and all of those things. So it was, pretty exciting. But he stuck to Stanford until Sunday. He decommitted on Sunday, committed to UCLA on Tuesday. So while UCLA has a lot of 4-star recruits in this, I think they wound up with 6 total. He is the highest rated out of all of them. He's a terrific player, and UCLA is going to be in dire need of defensive backs because, frankly, looking at who comes back or who doesn't or whatever, 3 out of the 5 starters are gone because they've already graduated and exhausted all of their eligibility. Obi Ebo and Quantrez Knight and Quentin Lake are gone, period. Matter of fact, the only one who can come back is Stephen Blaylock. So they're going to be lacking experience. They've got some good, young, talented players who played a little bit, but they're going to be lacking experience. They need some depth at the position. So that was a pretty big get for them. Frankly, that was the biggest out of the class.
This early signing period has been in play for, I believe, 4 recruiting cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, the February date was set the first Wednesday of the month. And now we are seeing 90+% of the players signed in December. However, we are now seeing a type of college football free agency with the transfer portal. We obviously see coaches changes more so than ever as programs and administrations are less patient. Therefore, there's more coaching turnover each year, which creates situations in which coaches are placed in a panic mode of stepping on a campus for the first time, trying to figure out what's what, and retaining a recruiting class in the span of 10 days to 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, bowl preparation for more than 80 teams across the country. So the
Right.
majority of college football. So all of that intersects. And there is a push for going back possibly to February, or
Mhm.
having some other date set after the holidays. So where do we stand there?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I think all of those things are true. I think with everything that changes in the system, you and I see constantly unintended consequences. They make a change for this reason, but then all of these other dominoes fall as a result of it. Some are fine, some less so. I think what we have seen is you absolutely correctly pointed out, is coaches getting fired earlier in the season, because if a school is going to even think about pulling the plug, they're trying to send a message to their recruiting class. Hey, we're not accepting this low level of play or mediocrity or whatever the rationale is. Hang in there with us. We're going to make changes. And so you're seeing coaches get fired in October, so that and that really is strictly a byproduct of the December signing period. You've got guys, look, a lot of UCLA's commits were committed as early as March, April, May, and they hung in there through all of the unknowns of, what was going to happen with Chip Kelly, who, by the way, as you and I have this conversation, still does not have his contract extension. So there's still a little bit of weirdness going on with that. But, there's Todd Berry, who, and we talked to Chip Kelly about this as well. Todd Berry, who's the executive director of the Football Coaches Association, has put forth a proposal to drop the December recruiting period, the signing period, in order to take some of the pressure off the coaches and of the schools, and frankly, of some of the players, to make that decision sooner, and his plan would put it to mid-January, basically somewhere around the deadline for players who are going to commit to the NFL. Makes a little bit of sense based on the math problems you and I were talking about. I'm not good at math, never was, but we've got these intricacies, and his rationale is this will make it a little bit easier. Coaches can manage the scholarship numbers a little bit easier if the signing period is closer to when their players have to commit one way or the other. Or just drop it all together and go back to the way it was with February. Chip Kelly, strangely enough, is adamantly opposed to it. He said the players are committed early on. The whole point is to get this off their shoulders, be done with the process so that they can move forward with the last semester of their senior year, or in some cases, frankly, make sure that they can sign their letter of intent and be early enrollees if they have the credits to graduate high school early and be on campus end of January or whenever. I think that's still possible if you do a mid-January signing period. Part of the other rationale for it from Barry is that if there is a coaching change, if Lincoln Riley is going to SC, because SC had a horrible recruiting class, but it's to be expected, right? Because Clay Helton was gone. Dante Williams was coaching knowing that he wasn't going to get to keep the job. He was never going to be named the head coach. So what kind of recruiting was going to go on? Lincoln Riley gets the job 2 weeks ago. He can't secure a class like that. The point is, give those coaches another month, another 3-4 weeks to try and secure a viable class. Chip Kelly called it making a rule for 12 coaches. He said this instance was affected 10, 11, 12 coaches. It was actually 15, but I'm not going to split hairs with Chip. And he said, and I don't think it's necessary. This was an anomaly. There were more of these changes this year than in most years. Leave it alone. It's fine. I actually see the value in moving it a month. I don't see the value in going back to February. I really don't, because then you do take away the early enrollee process. But I do see a value in moving it. The chaos that goes on these campuses with the firing of the coaches, with the, players, decommitting at the last minute or flipping at the last minute or whatever the case may be. The kid who wound up at Jackson State, dumps Florida State and, goes to Dion, last minute, this kind of chaos. It's entertaining for people like us who make our living talking about it. I'm not sure it's really good for the game though. And so let's tweak it and see if we can make it better.
It's my understanding that the sole purpose of moving the signing day back to December was that there was feedback coming back from the student athletes that most of them had come to a decision point earlier, and they could make a decision maybe just to clear their minds and live out their last semester in high school carefree, or to your point, for those that are going to enroll early to be able to get on campus early. And that was the sole purpose of it, was to not continue to hound them in the recruiting process past that. Why can't we do what is being proposed here to relieve the coaches and the coaching staffs and the administrations and all the things that have to be done during these transitional times during December, move it back to mid-January, as you point out, and give the players the option of enacting their own dead period, let's say, in which they state, I've made a decision, I don't want to make it known yet, or I can't sign until January 15th.
Right.
Therefore, I am enacting a dead period. Please don't contact me.
Or make a real dead period. Seriously, let's make after the conference championship games through the rest of December, we'll say, make it a real dead period. Let these kids sit on their decisions, go through it, process it a little bit more. Yeah, you committed in May, but how many players did we see that committed in May who flipped in the last 2 weeks? A lot. Is it anecdotal? Yes. Is there some mathematical formulation that says, well, 8% did this or 20% did? I don't know. Again, bad math. But but enact a dead period for a couple of weeks in December. You can still do the early enrollee in most cases if you put it on January 10th or the 12th, because there's nothing to happen. No one's on campus for the last 2 weeks of December and the first week of January anyway. You can still do that and get these kids in if they have the credits to graduate from college. It doesn't change that, because it's not a huge enrollment period from here to January 10th anyway on any campus. You can still do it. I agree with you. Let's put a dead period in there that kind of lets everybody just simmer in their decisions. Let the coaches go through what they have to do in terms of, assessing, especially the new coaches, right? Someone who's just taking over a program, and assess what they have, assess who's leaving. They have barely talked to the players that they have, much less know which ones are leaving for the NFL in a few weeks. They barely unpack their office. Give them that time to do that, to ask them to turn around a recruiting class in a couple of weeks and have a viable program in, next year is really absurd. And again, like you pointed out, it was the players saying, we made a decision. Let's just go ahead and get it done, right? Okay, again, let's look at how many flip at the last minute or in the last week or whatever the case may be. Another couple of weeks isn't going to really change that if you really are solid in your decision.
Tony Siracusa, last word on college football with the UCLA breakdown and the greater topic of college football recruiting and the National Signing Day date and what will work best for everyone. Catch Tony's work and the rest of the staff there. Last word on college football. Tony, we appreciate it. Get yourself some rest.
All right, Mark. We're gonna get a couple hours sleep tonight. I think. Yeah, we start our bowl coverage tomorrow with pregame and postgame on every bowl game. So we'll get a couple hours sleep before that starts.